Here comes that cherry red striped Kentworth semi, and with Bear as a co-pilot, nothing can stand in their way. BJ and the Bear, a memorable and short-lived series. Followed BJ McKay and his bear, a proper furry friend, not an actual bear. He was his ever so stylish pet chimpanzee named Bear. We watched 3 seasons of all their wild adventures, kinda like Dukes of Hazzard meets Convoy. The show was produced at the height of the CB radio and trucking craze in the US, and produced by the one and only Glenn A. Larson, the same year he was developing Buck Rogers for TV. I mean, did this man sleep? Jury's still out. But what isn't up for debate is how fun BJ and the Bear was. Truly escapist to the interstates. I'm your host, Nostalgic Nick, and if you enjoy our deep dive, be sure to honk our horn by clicking that thumbs up icon. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Alright, now where's Bear? Greg Evigan. BJ McKay is a good-looking young trucker who traveled across the country in his big rig, with his adorable and fashionable pet chimp. BJ was always a step ahead of the pestering lawmen, a great leading man and a good old boy, and you could root for him to avoid the law while dealing with corrupt truckers or some problem, and awaiting each week's gorgeous lady that would be incorporated. And their hair had to be perfectly styled to avoid being overshadowed by Greg Evigan's feathered locks. Another potential BJ McKay was the great Dennis Quaid. Too bad, Quaid. But before Greg had all the girls swooning, he was just a kid growing up in New Jersey, where at age 8 he took to music, learning piano and sax. And his musical talent helped land his first break, a small part in the 1971 Broadway production of Jesus Christ Superstar. Then he became Danny Zuko for Broadway's Grease, before finally deciding to move across country to LA, where he immediately booked the exploitation film Scorchy in 1976, which starred Connie Stevens, who funny enough played Miss Mason in Grease 2. Then Greg booked a season 4 episode of The $6 Million Man titled The Bionic Boy, and before you knew it, he was headlining a TV show which showcased once again his musical talents.
What do you do in New Year's?
The 1977 rock and roll drama A Year at the Top. He played Greg alongside Paul, played by Letterman's music director, the great Paul Schaefer. And just a year later, he'd become a sensation in BJ and the Bear. And you'll certainly remember Greg from his 3-season run of My Two Dads beginning in '87. He co-starred with the very funny Paul Reiser. And then the mid-90s, he co-starred with William Shatner in Tech War, based on a book series that William Shatner himself penned. Most recently, we saw Evigan star in the Hallmark film Once Upon a Holiday, co-starring his daughter Brianna, who also has a great career, as she was the star of the 2008 Step Up sequel. And Brianna too is beautiful, just like Dad. Today, Greg Evigan is 68 years old, and his next film is a TV movie that stars a bunch of the Brady Bunch kids. So be sure to look out for Blending Christmas this season on Lifetime. Eric Server. Lieutenant Jim Steiger was played by Server after he played a truck driver on season 1, and then Agent Billings on a season 2 2-part season opener. Server began acting in 1963. Most people will remember his voice as the computer brain Dr. Theopolis in the 1979 series Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
You are now in the 25th century.
Server appeared in some really great shows, like 5 episodes of The Streets of San Francisco in the 70s, and then Simon & Simon in the 1980s. Eric stopped acting after his 1993 role in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but he did return for a role in 2014's Mom's Night Out. Today, Eric is 76 years old and works as a tax consultant with his son at Server & Associates LLP. Linda McCullough. Her Callie joined the show towards the end of season 2 and was prominent for season 3. Linda didn't act much, but it all began with the hit 70s Travolta-led Welcome Back, Kotter, where she played Sally for 3 episodes. Really, her only other notable role is providing the voice for Sky One in 1997 for the Knight Rider reboot attempt Team Knight Rider. Linda was married to soap actor Lawrence Lau for 2 years in the early 80s, and today she is in her late 60s and resides in LA, where she works as a photographer, painter, and designer. Murray Hamilton. Captain Rutherford T. Grant was the corrupt head of the Special Crimes Action Team and a silent partner in a competing trucking firm. Murray Hamilton first began acting in 1944, his breakthrough alongside Henry Fonda in a long-running play, Mr. Roberts. Two notable film roles include 1959's Anatomy of a Murder and then 1967's The Graduate.
So I hope you won't mind my giving you a friendly piece of advice.
But many fans first think of an eerie 1975 horror film where Murray played the stubborn Mayor Vaughn in the hit Spielberg-directed Jaws.
Love to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name into the National Geographic.
And we have a video where you can revisit that entire cast whenever you want to jump back into the waters. Murray Hamilton's role in BJ and the Bear was one that came later in his life. He worked alongside some Hollywood greats like Andy Griffith and Robert Redford. Hamilton sadly died of lung cancer at the age of 63 in 1986. He worked right up until his death. His last role being 1986's Whoops Apocalypse, co-starring with MASH's Loretta Swit. What a career! Murray was part of 5 films that were selected by the Library of Congress for the National Film Registry. Truly incredible. Judy Landers. Landers played Stax. Stax was part of the 7 lady truckers that worked so well with BJ in this show. You'll certainly remember Landers, because when she started working in Hollywood in 1976, she was everywhere.
Gee, well, guess what?
Beginning by playing Boom Boom in an episode of Happy Days. Then she was part of the first season of the popular show Vegas, which led her right to BJ and the Bear. In 1982, Landers was part of the surreal puppet show Madam's Place, featuring Wayland Flowers, the premier puppet comedian for adults. And this series only had one very memorable season. Over 9 years, Landers boarded the Love Boat 8 times, and she still acts occasionally too, recently reuniting with Greg Evigan in the 2019 film Manipulated. Today, Judy is 63 years old, and since 1987, has been married to former Major League Baseball pitcher Tom Niedenfuer. They have 2 daughters together, Lindsay and Christy. Mills Watson. Now, we couldn't forget Deputy Perkins, who was part of the original 6 episodes, the first being the TV movie. But after these early episodes were such a huge hit, producers immediately forked the road and gave Lobo a spin-off, which Perkins rode shotgun to. The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo ran for 2 seasons. Mills Watson is probably best known for his role of Uncle Buster from the 1981 TV series Harper Valley PTA. Mills acted until he retired in the 1990s. His final role was 1992's Gunsmoke to the Last Man. Watson is currently 81 years old and lives in Talent, Oregon, which brings us to Lobo himself. Claude Akins. Sheriff Lobo was the main corrupt cop that BJ had to deal with before Lobo went primetime on his own series. Now, Claude Akins is an acting powerhouse. His booming voice frequented many hit shows and films.
If you wear dentures, I'll bet you know what it's like getting food stuck between your dentures and gum. Like this chunk of salt. Ouch.
Beginning in 1954, he booked 2 episodes of Dragnet, and throughout the 50s, he worked constantly. But it wasn't just on TV. In 1959, he played a gunfighter in the tremendous Western Rio Bravo, but he was never the lead of his own show, until a show about a big rig. No, not BJ yet. Claude was the star of 1974's Movin' On. Then it was Lobo's time to shine, before things started to calm down for the aging actor. Claude worked right up until the year he passed away in 1994. His final notable gig was in 1992 in the John Mellencamp directed and starred in film, Falling from Grace. Claude Akins passed away at just 67 years old from stomach cancer. Bear and More. Of course, we're all waiting for Bear, named after Bear Bryant, the famed football coach for the University of Alabama. This adorable chimp had a smile that cut to our core, a 20-year-old chimp named Sam. But after portraying Bear, it's not quite clear what this adorable chimp got into. I do hope he's enjoying his retired trucking life in Malibu. Although Bear is out of the picture, that beautiful rig is not. The truck behind the show remains a showstopper and frequents car and truck shows around the country. And there you have it, the cast and rig of BJ and the Bear. So let's talk. What's a great episode of this show you remember? Did you have a favorite season of the show? And was this the best animal acting show ever? Or were you a Flipper fan, or Lassie, or maybe Mr. Ed? Get in the comments and you let us know. And if you enjoyed our deep dive, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a memory. From all of us here at Do You Remember, thanks so much for watching.